Good morning. Good morning. Better, thank you. Welcome to the 2021 Career Day. We are very, very excited to have this morning a group of alumni from the Mount who have said yes to coming back and speaking to our classes today, both the group that is in person here in the gym and the group at home via live stream. For those who don't know me, my name is Mr. Cote. I'm the Vice President of Development and Alumni Relations here at the Mount. And you might ask, why is the person in charge of alumni relations speaking to our sophomores and juniors today? Well, it's very simple. In a few short years, my goal is for each and every one of you to be a proud alum of the Mount and to come back and give back to campus in a variety of ways. And one of those ways is by sharing your wisdom with our current students. And that's what our panelists that are here today are going to do for all of you. So I encourage you to listen, to think of good questions for at the end, and to begin to really think about what different career paths you can take after the Mount. Because our goal here for each and every one of our students is to prepare you for whatever is after the Mount, for college and beyond. I've been joking all morning with our panelists that if you had told me my sophomore or junior year of college that this is where I would have been today, back in a high school, fundraising, working with alumni, I would have laughed at you and said, you're crazy. I was a finance major in college. I worked at a bank. I thought that's where my career was going. And my career took a turn. And it's a turn that I love, and it's a turn that I never would have expected. And that's okay. So my goal for the group of young alums that are here in front of us is to tell their story of how they got to where they are today and to give you some tips as you begin to prepare that in the future. And know that the conversation just starts today. Hopefully the conversation continues in your classrooms with your guidance counselors, with your teachers and friends and family as you prepare for life after the Mount. So that's all I'm going to say. With that, I'm going to introduce Brother Brian. Brother Brian is a Marist brother since 2008. Before that, he spent 5 years in China. From 2013 to 17, he was here at the Mount, so a little bit before your time. And he is now working full-time for the Marist Brothers. He'll share a little bit about what that means and open us with a prayer. And then after that, Mr. Coratori, our President and CEO, will give some welcoming remarks and introduce our keynote. So again, thank you for your attention today, and I look forward to the conversation continuing. And with that, Brother Brian.
Thank you, and good morning once more. As Mr. Cote said, my name is Brother Brian. I'm a Marist brother just like Brother Steve. I'm actually not going to say much about what that means right now, although I'm always happy to talk with any of you at a later point, if any of you are just curious about what that means. You may have recognized me around school. I'm not always dressed this way, so keep your eyes sharp. But I do have an office I sometimes inhabit up in the counseling wing, and so I'll be looking forward to talking with you if you're so inclined. I speak often with people about vocation, which is a word that you may have heard in your religion class, right? It means calling. What is God calling you to do? But sometimes when people hear that word vocation, they only think about that question of, well, is somebody called to be a priest, somebody called to be a religious brother, such as myself, or called to marriage and family, or called to remain single. And that's an important part of vocation. But vocation is a lot more than that. Because vocation is about what you are called to do with your life. Every single one of you is given the opportunity and the invitation to make this world a better place than when you entered it in some way. And to do that, each and every one of you possesses distinct gifts. some of which you may not yet have recognized, some of which you may already know. Some of these gifts you were born with. They're either innate talent or cultural gifts that you've inherited. Some are gifts that you've gained through your experience. But regardless, each of you has the opportunity and the invitation to make this world better in a different way than anybody else can. Some of you will do that in part through the career that you choose, which is why I'm speaking with you right now. Some of you, though, that primary difference will not take place through your career. It might take place through the relationships you have in your life with family members or friends, or even the ways that you treat strangers. Some of you might even make that difference through hobbies that you never ever get paid for, but that somehow make an impact. Now, don't get me wrong, making money is good too. And certainly when you think about careers, that's part of what you're thinking about. Making money is good to a certain point, as long as in doing so, you're providing some service that makes people's lives better. And we know from this pandemic experience that that can look very different than we once thought. We used to not think about how valuable even workers in grocery stores are, right? But so many people that you encounter make life better for us in ways that we might take for granted sometimes. So even if you end up taking a job that maybe you didn't initially see meaning in, maybe you can discover that meaning, and it's not just about money. Or maybe some of you take a job and it is for the money, but you can use that money to do something good. So this career day, I hope that some of you will discover an exciting opportunity to discover the good that you can do. Or maybe find a way to simply make some money to do the good that you can do. But I would ask you through all this to ask yourself, not only what do you want to do, but what life does God want to give you? And so we pray in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Loving God, our future is still a mystery. Help us notice where you stir our interest and where you redirect us. Send your Spirit to guide us so that we may always do the good for which you have created us. We ask this in your name. Amen. May our good Mother pray for us. Father Shapaya, pray for us. St. Michael the Archangel, pray for us. And let us remember to pray for each other. In the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Brother Brian. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Mount St. Michael's Career Day 2021. A special thank you to our alumni for joining us today to share their professional experiences and insights. My fellow Mounties, these are men who, when they were Mounties, they were similar to you and I, kids from the boroughs of New York and Westchester County. Mr. Sullivan, the class of '96, our keynote speaker, was not born a senior operations healthcare executive. Mr. Beckford was not born a software engineer. Mr. Cash was not born a financial analyst. Ms. Guerra was not born an executive and program director. And Mr. Murphy was not born a director of aircraft maintenance. Our alumni from the NYPD, Officer Lisco, was not born a crime stopper and solver. My point is that professional and business skills are learned through education and experience that is supported by hard work and perseverance. If you dedicate yourself to your chosen profession the way our guests have, chances are very high that you too will succeed. Find a profession you love. It is a cliche, but very true. If you love what you do, you will never work a day in your life. I encourage you to take today's opportunity to listen and to learn. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Mr. Sullivan.
Morning. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for having me here. First, again, I would like to thank the Mount family for allowing me this privilege and honor to be speaking here today. Second, I would like to tell all of you sitting here, life will not be what you expect. Life is tough, it's hard, it sometimes feels unbearable. But it's how you approach these times and the opportunities that will define who you are and what your life will unfold to be. For all its hardships, life can be and is amazing. It's about making connections, seizing every opportunity to challenge yourself and others around you to do better. It's about finding a partner who may be, whoever that may be, to share life with, and it's about being a good person and paying it forward. Always be comfortable with who you are and always believe you belong in the room. No matter how smart or successful anyone is, remember you bring your own thoughts and ideas that are just as powerful. And I want you to truly think about that and believe in that. I have sat in a room with billionaires, CEOs, executives across the board, and I've found one thing in common. Everyone wants to feel like they belong. So all you have to do in that room is to have a connection with that person, and you will belong in that room. I started my journey here at the Mount in 1992. And from the first day, it was a vastly different experience than most freshmen have when entering into their first year. It was different because I was the one paying to be here. I am the youngest of 7 siblings born to Irish immigrants. My mother was a stay-at-home mom up until that time, and my father was the breadwinner. Shortly before graduation from grammar school, my father had an accident and became disabled. He was no longer able to work. Soon after, I remembered my mother sitting me down and telling me that we would have to figure something out if I wanted to go to the Mount in the fall. So that summer, I found a job as a busboy and a barback in a restaurant in Dows Ferry where my eldest brother lived at the time. I was able to take care of my tuition here as well as help out with things around the house. It wasn't easy. When most freshmen were trying out for sports and playing sports after school and weekends, I had to work every Thursday night through the weekend. It made for an interesting adolescence. However, to this day, I am grateful for that experience. At a very early age, I learned the true value of hard work and its relation to monetary compensation. I was able to interact with so many different people and experience life through their perspective, even if only for a few minutes. It allowed me to understand there were life possibilities in the world other than what was around my immediate surroundings. So I continued working throughout my 4 years in my junior and senior year. I also worked for a real estate company during those last 2 years of high school. I would do fill-in jobs for them, such as vacation coverage for janitors, maintenance workers, and even superintendents. They even paid me to watch concrete dry, and yes, that's actually a job. After graduating from Mount, the owner of the real estate company offered me a full-time job as a file clerk in his office. I had applied for a superintendent position in one of their buildings. The owner, John, told me he saw something more in me and convinced me to work in his office. At that time, I did not want to go to college. I was honestly burnt out from working in high school. I spent the first 2 years reading and learning about the business of property management. Most days, I would stay in the office until midnight, reading and learning as much as I could. I also still continued to work in the restaurant, only now as a waiter. The money was just too good to give up. After 2 years, I asked my boss for the chance to manage a building of my own. He allowed me that opportunity. 10 years later, I was managing over 25 buildings, and I handled all of the corporation's legal cases. During my time at this company, I had also thought about joining the military as a reservist. My boss, John, was also an Army reservist. He encouraged me to do so. And so I enlisted and went off to boot camp in May of 2001. I graduated boot camp September 7th of 2001. I stayed in Savannah, Georgia for the weekend, and I came back to New York on Monday, September 10th to start my 10-day vacation. The next morning was September 11th. By late afternoon, the realization of what had occurred had taken hold, and I thought I would never come back home again, as I felt we were going into war. I was fortunate to have not been activated for any wartime missions, and in 2009, I completed my military career. During this time, I met an amazing woman who is now my wife. I also realized that in order to have the life I wanted and to be able to support my family in the future, I would have to go back to school and earn my college degree. Although I was fairly successful at the time, I knew this was the next step I needed to take. I started my first semester at Iona College and quickly realized the cost of tuition and books and etc., as it was 10 years later than I should have gone. One day I went into the school's bookstore to get a required book that cost $300. While online waiting, I struck up a conversation with a brother Devlin. And I informed him that, during that conversation, I informed him about my doubts of continuing my education in college. He had said and let me know that if you work for the school, you actually can go for free. And I said, well, good luck getting a job. I'm sure, there's probably not available. He took my information down, and 2 days later, he called me and said, there is a position open. I said, great. And he said, but there's a catch. I said, what is that? He said, it's a custodial position. And I said, is it free tuition? And he said, yes. I said, I don't care, I'll take it. So I began working at night as a custodian and attending classes during the day. I found myself in the same position as in my high school days. It turns out I was actually a fairly good student, although for the life of me I could not pass statistics or calculus. I could feel your pain. Luckily, my wife is a math genius. She tried tutoring me at home, but unfortunately her tutoring was different from what the professor was teaching in class. So after 2 times of dropping the class, on the 3rd go-around, my wife actually took the class with me, which was pretty interesting. I remember the first day the professor read off the names and asked if we were sister and brother, and when we announced that we were husband and wife, he was shocked and said he's never had that. To no surprise, my wife received an A+ for the course, and I received a B in both. At the time of graduating from Iona in 2010, the economy was still suffering and the job market was not at its best. Luckily, a fellow classmate of mine was working in the finance sector and told me of a company that his company was hiring. I interviewed and was offered the job as an entry-level financial analyst. I decided to take it. It was not in the field I was used to, but I figured, why not? During my time there, my wife and I had our first child, a beautiful baby girl, Gabriella. We were so happy to have her in our lives, and we began to plan out what her life would be. 3 months later, we found out our daughter had a rare cancer and would need immediate care. We were given 2 options of treatment. One was the more traditional chemo and radiation, and the other was still in its finalization of experimental phases, off to becoming a protocol. We chose the latter. My daughter's main doctors were at Sloan Kettering, and her surgery was performed at New York Presbyterian Weill Cornell. As you can imagine, the day of my surgery, my wife and I were a complete mess. As we were walking into New York Presbyterian, a security officer saw us and could tell we were not in a good place. He came over to us, looked us in the eyes, and said, "We got you. You're in a good place." I can honestly say I don't remember most of what the doctors and nurses said during those months of surgeries, but I will never forget the security guard's words. The surgeries were successful, and my daughter is now a happy and amazing 10-year-old. She was given the all-clear at 9 months old, and 9 months after that, we welcomed our second child into this world, a baby boy, Nicholas. I also decided to go to grad school and obtain my MBA, for which I received in 2014. The financial company I was working for during this period was absolutely amazing to myself and my family, but I knew it wasn't the right fit for me, and I honestly wasn't good at it. So I began looking to get back into the real estate industry. A friend of mine suggested I look on Craigslist, which I was a little skeptical about, but I did. I looked at a posting, I found a posting, and I applied for it thinking, I don't believe in this. Well, it ended up, I did get the posting, and it turned out to be for New York Presbyterian Hospital. I became the operations manager in the real estate division, on the West Campus in Washington Heights. I thought to myself, this has to be too good to be true. What are the chances? Myself and two other coworkers were tasked with the opportunity of turning a portfolio of rundown residential properties that were on the brink of being sold off into a profitable business line. In a matter of 3 short years, this was accomplished, and by the 5th year, we had profits of $5.2 million. After 5 years of this position, I wanted more challenges, so I interviewed for several positions, some completely out of my area of expertise, and I got very high up in the interview process, but none materialized. Until an offer that was posted was provided to me. It was for the Director of Real Estate for New York Presbyterian Queens, which they had just acquired. I was in this position for 3 years. During this time, I negotiated new leases and lease expansions, taking the off-site portfolio from 130,000 square feet to just under 400,000 square feet. I also decided to go back to school again, this time for law. I took the LSAT exam and was awarded the Dean's Scholarship to New York Law School. I had started this journey and truly loved learning about the law. However, I currently put this on hold because I realized my daughter's 10 and I only have pretty much 4 good years left that she'll want to be near me, and after that she won't want anything to do with me. So I will definitely go back to law school, but it's just on hold for now. In May of 2020, while in the midst of the pandemic, I decided on my career end I wanted more challenges. And I applied and was offered my current position as Chief of Infrastructure and Support Services for Gotham Health, New York City Health and Hospitals. During my short time there, I have led the opening of 3 new COVID-19 centers of excellence, one right here in the Bronx, on East Tremont and Webster Avenue. That site alone was $26 million. Gotham Health, briefly describing Gotham Health, we are reinventing what New York City healthcare looks like. Our vision is that when you walk into one of our clinics, you will not know the difference between a New York Presbyterian clinic and a New York City clinic. I know in this position I can continue to make a difference in so many lives. In closing, I ask you to remember just a few things. Always be open to new opportunities and challenges. Always remember to be kind. Don't be afraid to strike up a conversation with someone you don't really know. You never know where it may lead. And the most important thing to remember is be confident in everything you do. You are part of the Mount family, and you will forever be part of the Mount family, and you will always belong in the room. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and good morning, everybody. Good morning to you students at home. It is now my pleasure to introduce the panelists in today's discussion. Giovanni Beckford is a graduate of the class of '09. Giovanni, you want to wave? Okay. And Giovanni is a software engineer at Google. He works in the search and maps team, making it easier to find places to eat. Earlier, he worked on the Google Docs team, collaboration engine used by 300 million users. Prior to Google, he worked at American Express, relaunching their front-end experience used by millions of card members. Outside of work, Giovanni writes, organizes communities around personal development and learning, and explores the applications of cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. I think Giovanni is going to have a very interesting story for all of us today. So welcome, Giovanni. Kai Cash. I'm going to introduce all of them and then they'll speak, okay? Kai Cash, wave, Kai. Kai is a member of the class of 15. Kai is also a graduate of our junior high school. He is an early stage venture capital investor at Primary Venture in New York City. Prior to starting at Primary, Kai was a financial rotational analyst at Microsoft, developed analytic skills at JPAL in India, technological skills through engineering work at Williams College, business acumen at Capital G in San Francisco, and an understanding of cross-sectional collaboration at Blackstone Charitable Foundation. I'm sure he's going to explain what all that means to us when he gets up to speak. Kai completed a Master's of Global Affairs at Tsinghua University in China, as a Schwartzman Scholar. That's a very prestigious scholarship, gentlemen. And he has a BA in economics from Williams College. He is also the lead for partnership and development at Right to Start, a campaign to renew the American economy through inclusive and equitable entrepreneurship for all. So Kai, we're very happy to have you back at Mount. Kai was a keynote speaker a few years ago at Career Day, right? Oscar Guerra. Oscar's here on my right. He's a member of the class of '01. Oscar completed several degrees after Mount, including a BS in biology and psychology from St. Thomas Aquinas College, a master's degree in nonprofit management and philanthropy from PayPath University, as well as a master's in business administration from PayPath University. After growing up in the Bronx, he spent time in Connecticut and recently bought a house in Westchester County. Oscar is currently the Healogistics Program Director for Wound Care and Hyperbarics Department at Montefiore Mount Vernon Hospital. So Oscar, welcome. Good to have you. And finally, Sean Lisco is a member of the class of '09. Sean is currently assigned to the Public Safety Violence Reduction Team of the 45th Precinct after joining the NYPD in 2012. After Mount, Sean attended Iona College and studied political science and mass communication. So Sean, we welcome you. So I think we're going to start our panel discussion today with Giovanni. Let's welcome these guys.
Hey everyone, or should I say what's up? I am actually not that far time scale wise from where you're sitting now. I actually remember being in your position not too long ago, even though for me it's been a little bit over 10 years now, but time sure does fly. I think the general theme of what I would like to do for this talk is to keep it real and keep it 100. I think a lot of what I've learned in life, or just in general, the theme that I want to really have for this talk is almost like a letter to myself when I was in your situation, in your seat. So I'll kind of start from the beginning and end up to today, but I'll give you a preface of where I am today. So currently, I work at Google as a software engineer. I worked on Google Maps, I worked on Google Docs. Now I'm working on a brand new app for Google. And if I was supposed to go back in time and tell myself that I'll be a software engineer, I'd be like, what is that? The second thing I would tell myself is, Google? You mean that company with these like super geniuses? Like, I'm not one of them. I don't see myself belonging here or being in that kind of position. And then of course I would learn, like, we're all human and we get to a point where we can do some pretty amazing things. And so starting back from the beginning, I actually didn't think I was going to go to Mount because I couldn't afford to go to Mount. I was accepted into Mount and I attended via a partial scholarship. So I got a partial scholarship, and then the other half is actually an interesting story. So I'm not sure what's going on today, but when I was in Mount, I actually was a candy hustler. And so I dealed candy underground to pay my way through school. I definitely think I probably would have got kicked out if I was caught. But I needed to do what I needed to do to be able to afford and stay in Mount. And I learned a lot through that experience. Selling candy was actually my personal MBA. I learned a lot about business. I learned a lot about persuasion. I learned a lot about human nature. Definitely learned a lot about logistics and figuring out the best ways to maximize the homeroom transition time, lunchtime, how to stack my inventory, how much I needed to put in my locker, all this other stuff. But today, I guess things are a lot more digital, so there's much more evolved hustles that are a little bit harder to track. And if you happen to be in that position, definitely say good luck and you'll learn a lot. The other thing that I will say is that going to Mount and being in the position that I was, a lot of my motivation was not only to be able to afford tuition, but to be able to help my mom. So I was raised by a single mom, and I grew up near Gun Hill Road in the Bronx, if any of you are familiar where that is. And a lot of my drive was to be able to escape poverty and to be able to help her. And the other factor was to be able to see more of the world. Another thing that I realized is that the world is a much bigger place than I thought. And growing up where I grew up, it was just the city blocked the hood, and a lot of my attention and time and energy was spent just trying to avoid trouble and like not get caught up in gang violence and all that other stuff. So the other important lesson for me was to just really make sure that I knew who my friends were, and to be able to be okay with being alone sometimes, because it was better to be alone and to stay focused than get caught up in the wrong crowd. And that really helped me to be able to get out of my circumstances and get out of my situation. And after that, I ended up going to Fordham University. Fordham University was also unknown. I got in through a special program called the Higher Educational Opportunity Program. And college was also something that I didn't know that I was going to be able to go to. To me, it was just this thing that comes up around after senior year. I think I applied late junior year to go to college. And I went to business school, and I had a leg up because I had the underground candy business, of course. And that was the theme of my college essay that I used to get in. Actually didn't get into business school at first. I got into undergraduate where I studied economics and design, and eventually transferred to the business school. After that, I saw technology taking off like crazy, and I realized that there were so many opportunities for technology, and it was pretty much eating the world. And that's a phrase that's coming up a lot today. And I'm sure that you all now are tech native. But when I was growing up, it was kind of this halfway point where the world was still very analog and physical, and technology was just starting to kick up. But for everyone here, there's a lot of opportunities in technology. I would say that it's been a life-changing field and profession and career for me. A lot of my motivations that I wanted to, and goals that I wanted to take care of when I was growing up, like being able to take care of my mom, I've been able to do that. I just got a house for her recently. Being able to travel the world and go on all sorts of adventures, I've been able to do that. And my journey for learning how to code was also another interesting experience. So I actually went to business school, and in business school, I taught myself how to code. So I didn't go to college to learn computer science because the program wasn't as strong for computer science. So I decided to stay in the business school, and then after class, just study extra, and during summer breaks, learn how to code. So I kept that up, but my main motivation actually was games. So I was hooked on this game called RuneScape and this other game called Guild Wars. I'm not sure what people are playing nowadays, but back then, those were my main drivers and motivation to figure out how I can create bots and scripts to help mine resources for the most part. And then I use that knowledge and to apply it to more business applications. But in general, I would end at the biggest things that I've learned in terms of starting a career, making money, and being able to go after opportunities is one, if there's 5 important skills that you want to learn, is 1, the skill of learning how to learn. So being able to understand a concept and understand how you learn things and being able to learn at a faster rate. 2, being able to build new habits and acquire skills quickly. 3, being able to learn how to sell, to be able to sell yourself to employers, as well as to get access to opportunities. 4, to be able to transcend fear. I know there's a lot of uncertainty with lockdown, COVID, and everything else going on, but when I graduated was around 2009, so right after the 2008 financial collapse. And so I was in a similar position where there was a lot of uncertainty in the world, a lot of chaos and fear, but in general, you want to stay optimistic and you want to trust and believe in yourself that you'll be able to like navigate whatever crazy stuff happens in the world. And the other thing you want to do is have this concept or idea of learning about others, learning about the world, and learning about yourself, and just continuing to trust that whatever happens, just have fun, and continue to meet interesting people and believing in yourself, and you'll be able to support your family. So thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me. My name's Kai. I actually went to Mount St. Michael from 6th grade all the way through to the end of high school. What I'm doing right now is I'm a venture capital investor, which basically means that I'm trying to invest in technology companies. Think Uber, Lyft, Robinhood. I want to meet the people who are building those companies before they become companies that you hear about in the media. So how did I get here? When I graduated from Mount, if you asked me what I wanted to do, and honestly, if you Google my name right now and put Mount St. Michael, you'll probably see a story about wanting to be an anesthesiologist or an orthopedic surgeon who had a biomedical practice. I think I had like a whole architecture plan laid out as to what I was going to do. And 1 year into college, I absolutely hated everything that had to do with biology and chemistry and loved all of my other classes much more than I did anything relating to medicine. And truth be told, I had some deep conversations with myself, maybe similar to Giovanni, where I think my motivation for going to medical school was more grounded in financial insecurity than it was in any intellectual curiosity or thinking about what I would be useful or where my strengths are sort of in the world. So after I gave up on that dream, I didn't really give up, I would say. I still took the classes, very much so as a safety net, which sounds weird because it's very difficult to get into medical school, but I didn't give it up all the way. I told myself that, okay, I would just pivot into public health. And so after my freshman year of college, I spent a bunch of time traveling on the dime of my college, Williams College, which I can talk more about, to a variety of places all around the world. And just a snapshot of that, my first summer, I spent my entire summer, a little bit over 4 months, in Delhi, in India, working on a randomized controlled trial, which is the most robust research methodology that you can use to test different health outcomes, different behavioral outcomes. I landed in Delhi, no sense of the language, no way to get around, never been outside of the country at least that far before, and quickly learned how to survey people, how to do interviews, worked with a translator to figure out why people weren't taking their tuberculosis medication. Tuberculosis is a very contagious disease that kills more people every single year than most of the things that we're familiar with. And you might think that the intervention there was, wow, people just don't trust or people just don't want to take their vaccinations because they can't afford it, because this, that, and the other. But India actually had a program that allowed all of these vaccinations to be free of charge. All the medicine was free of charge to everyone. And the actual reason that people weren't taking that medication was because they had a stigma around being sick. And so if you were sick, you weren't able to, for instance, send your daughter to school or have someone marry your child. And so people were then hiding the fact that they were sick and helping other people become more contagious and contract the disease. And so the ultimate solution in that research study was actually to ask people, celebrities, people who are famous, Bollywood stars, to come out and say, hey, I too have had this virus, I too have been sick, and I was cured by following this protocol. And that was an incredibly interesting experience for me because it kind of broadened my horizons when I was thinking about health to, okay, how do we think about the social as well as the financial and the other dimensions that go into creating a horizontal health infrastructure rather than a vertical one. The difference being vertical is someone says these people are sick, you say, okay, cool, let's go get them medicine. The other way around says, first principles, how did they get sick in the first place? Well, maybe they don't have clean water and sanitation. Maybe they don't have enough money to buy nutritious food, so they're eating out of the garbage, whatever it might be. Thinking more on the ground, first principles, how do you do this thing? The reason I mention this experience in particular is because a lot of what I did there translates very well to what I'm doing now. So again, briefly, I went on, I did that. The following summer or spring break, or really any time away from school, I went to Ecuador, I went to West Africa, I went to parts of Southeast Asia, and more of the same, just trying to find ways to be useful to the world in ways that could improve outcomes for people who had less than I had. Through all of those experiences, one of the summers I actually had an opportunity to work at Google as well. Though I wasn't a software engineer, I worked as a venture capital intern, and that was my first introduction to venture capital. I didn't really know what it was, but immediately into that role, I knew that it was what I wanted to do, because on a day-to-day basis, my job is to research technologies that haven't been invented yet, to find people who are trying to create the future, and then to give them money to do so, to hopefully generate a substantial return to what are called limited partners and general partners at my firm. And the basic infrastructure behind that is a lot of people with a lot of money come together and say, how do we make more money? They give money to me and to the rest of my team to invest in companies. They take an ownership percentage of those companies. When those companies have what's called an exit or a liquidation event, these people then take a percentage of that. So if Uber, was a $1 billion company, probably much more than that. If Uber was a $1 billion company, or probably much more than that, you had 50% of that. That's $500 million going straight into your pocket, after taxes, so on and so forth, and that's private market investing. After college, I guess one other thing to mention from college is that, so when I pivoted from focusing specifically on health, I decided to major in economics, not because I thought economics would be particularly useful at any particular job. In fact, I would actually go to say that one of the key takeaways that you probably take away from my talk is that major is not career, nor is major job. Major is a discipline and a way of looking at the world that makes you more useful to the people that you're surrounding yourself with. In other words, you yourself will never be able to do everything. You have to decide what lens you want to take onto the world and how you can team up with other people to solve problems. I chose economics because it was the most intuitive thing to me, and I graduated with a degree in economics and moved to Beijing. I was living in Beijing for about 7 months before the COVID pandemic happened, studying Chinese, working again as an investor, and trying to corral sort of entrepreneurship, but in East Asia. When COVID happened, I had to come back to the United States almost abruptly and came right back to the Bronx where I grew up. I started working at a charitable foundation managed by Blackstone, which is a large private equity firm in New York. While I was there, I developed a fellowship for people like yourselves who graduating from high school, graduating from college, who are looking to build new technologies and new companies, and basically gave them the resources to do so. Shortly after that, moved on and started working at Microsoft as a financial analyst. And during my time at Microsoft, I like to say that it was a great experience, but it wasn't for me. And it wasn't for me for a couple of reasons. One, it was a large company, so what I felt like I was doing was I was working on a very specific, repeatable task that would eventually be automated, no doubt. And I knew that the skills that I had developed over the past couple of years working in small, more intimate, cross-functional environments would be useful would be more useful in other contexts. And so I decided to leave, which is not typical of someone right out of college or right out of grad school, getting a job at a top company like Microsoft and then moving on. But I made that decision because I take a lot of time to really reflect and learn about myself and understand what I can and can't do. And I knew that I had the preferences and the optionality to make a decision to work in the space that I wanted to work in. And so since then, I've been working at Primary Venture Partners. I've been there for just over a month now. And like I said, we invest in technology companies that are trying to really change the world. And so if you're kind of looking around and seeing a lot of people in the news creating voice technology or Internet of Things or quantum mechanics, whatever you can really imagine of, there are a lot of people building that stuff, which is incredibly inspiring. So I'll pause there and then maybe just give a few notes that I've learned along the way. The first that I already mentioned is that what you study does not necessarily have to correlate to what you do. You should study and pursue the things that you like and where your strengths are, and then try to match that to the market and the opportunities that present themselves along the way. Second is it is very important, as Giovanni mentioned, that you have a firm grasp of who you are as a person, and your personal brand maybe is what some people might call it. What is your skill set, and how can you continue to grow that over time? The third, also mentioned by Giovanni, is you have to learn how to learn, because the rate of technological change is accelerating every single year. You cannot be stagnant in the way that you approach different problems and the way that you approach your vocation, your career. You need to be able to be flexible and to shift as things shift around you. And maybe finally is, it's very important, and the only reason that I am where I am today, that you continue to connect with people in a real, deep, and meaningful way. And that comes from being vulnerable and having confidence in your own story. Maybe the final takeaway is people actually need, students like yourselves, people like you, people like me, people like us, to be in the rooms that are having these conversations about what is the technology that's going to shape our future? What kind of health outcomes do people deserve? How do we fight for social justice and things of that nature? And you don't have to be defined to just your role. There are a lot of things that you can do inside and outside of your job that can make a meaningful difference in the world. And the world actually requires and needs your help. So when you're in your classroom thinking, okay, like what am I going to do? Or if you're in college and you're thinking not that much of yourself, I know I had many moments like that. You have to remember that it's not just about you. It might be about your family. It might be about your community, but it is certainly and almost absolutely about people in the world who don't have the opportunity and the privileges to do what you're doing. So just take it seriously, and I'm always available as a resource. I'm sure sort of my information is available with the Alumni Relations Office. If you're interested in technology, if you're interested in investing, if you're interested in just kind of a windy career path thus far, I'm happy to connect with any of you afterwards. Thanks.
Good morning, guys. Good morning. My name is Oscar Guerra, class of 2001. I'm currently the program director for Helogics. It is a national wound care company, and I work out of Montefiore Mount Vernon Hospital. What else can I say? I really wanted to start with what was I thinking, pretty much, and put myself in where, remember where I was when I was your age and when I was here. I came from a Peruvian immigrant family, first generation here. So I was obviously in my house. I heard a lot of, "Oh, mijo, you should be a doctor. You should be a lawyer. You should do all those typical careers, right?" And and obviously, it was a good thing. You think money. You think, helping people. And I think I mentioned the helping people because that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to help people. And I liked working with people. It was one of those skills that I actually learned here. I could tell a longer story, but it happened at a blood drive I think we had here at the Mount. There's actually a picture of me in my yearbook from that year, fainting, but somebody actually helping me here. But I wanted to help people. And it started from that idea, which is why when I graduated from here, I said, all right, well, I want to be a doctor. Let me just start there. And I went in pre-med. Into St. Thomas Aquinas College, pre-med, took all the science courses. But the story does take a turn because I did 3 years of pre-med, thinking I was going to be, going on my track to becoming a doctor, but then got introduced to psychology. So, and this is something that absolutely happens. You can go in thinking you're going to do one thing, but you end up doing another. In my second semester junior year, I ended up going and changing my major completely to psychology, and focusing on that, and wanting to take that track of, understanding the mind and, all those different career paths you could do with that. And because I had so many sciences, I ended up doing pretty much a bachelor's in biology and psychology. And then, gratefully, I ended up doing an extra semester at college. And I guess what I want to say with that is that nothing's perfect. Nothing's going to be exactly 4 years college, you become a doctor, do that, do this. There's speed bumps and things that get thrown at you. And you roll with it, you make those changes, and you commit yourself to taking the courses, and it's exactly what I did. I ended up going and doing an extra semester in college, graduating with a bachelor's in psych and biology. And fortunately, I mean, that was 2005, 6. And my first job, kind of like Dave, I mean, I ended up at New York Presbyterian Psych, right here in Westchester, in White Plains. And that, like I said, it was just a good time. It was timing. So timing is everything. My first job was at New York Presbyterian, made good money. I was a mental health counselor. And now that's actually a degree you can get, mental health counseling, a master's in mental health counseling, but I was labeled a mental health counselor working with adolescents on an adolescent psych unit, still helping out one-to-one with people. And I worked there for like 5 years. And then I enjoyed the atmosphere of working side by side with doctors and nurses and all that. Once again, going back to that idea of like, hey, originally I wanted to be a doctor, I wanted to be in the medical field. And, you know, I took advantage. One thing I learned, and I'm actually going to hear it in some of the other jobs I went into, is that many jobs will pay for you to go get your degrees. When I was at New York Presbyterian, they offered to pay for a nursing degree. So I started an LPN degree, already having a bachelor's, but I wanted to get a nursing degree. So I started a nursing degree. I didn't quite finish it because then I met my wife and then we moved to Connecticut. Another thing that was very different than what I thought when I was probably sitting where you are in that age. I said, we're gonna make good money, I'm gonna live in New York City forever, have a nice penthouse apartment, you know, downtown. Completely different. She convinced me to move out of Connecticut. I stopped my LPN degree, my nursing degree, and went up to Connecticut and got my first managerial role in a nonprofit mental health program company in Windsor, Connecticut. It's like almost 2 hours away from here. Never thought I'd end up in the middle of Hartford County, up in Connecticut. And well, it was an eye-opening experience. Like I said, my first managerial position. So that's how I ended up in a leadership role. Gaining some experience there, leading people, making decisions, looking at finances, looking at numbers, and still helping people. Because from time to time, I actually did still do counseling and met with people one-to-one, like light counseling, obviously, because I was leading social workers and nurses as well. And I did that for another 5 years. While I was there, they offered to pay for my master's degree, my first master's degree, which is nonprofit management philanthropy. I learned that nonprofits aren't exactly what I grew up thinking nonprofits were. What I learned is nonprofits didn't mean no profit. Actually, Mount St. Michael is a nonprofit, I believe, so it's considered a nonprofit. And just to remember that nonprofit businesses just doesn't mean that they make no profit. So I figured they're going to pay for it, I might as well let them pay for it. So I ended up getting my first master's degree on that company, that nonprofit mental health company I worked for. And then while I was in school, learned that I could do a business degree there as well. But they weren't going to pay for the business degree. So after 5 years in a nonprofit mental health setting, I ended up working at Lego. And I know it's a very big change. And Lego, by Lego, yes, the toy company Lego. Maybe some of you guys build, some of you guys work, play with that stuff still. I won't lie, I'm 38 years old. I build Lego still and I collect them. But I made that change because what I learned is that Lego will pay for any degree 50%. And there's no commitment. So I took that opportunity, completely changed tracks, took the experience I learned and said, you know what, I'm just going to work for this for-profit toy company and let them pay for my business degree. And that's exactly what happened. I stayed there for a year. They paid 50% of my MBA. And then I said, you know what? Obviously, my passion was for helping people. Once again, I went back to that passion of wanting to work side by side with doctors, side by side with nurses, and helping people and seeing patients day to day. And so I went back to the nonprofit setting. But with both degrees, I ended up helping the people I met along the way that said, oh, Oscar, you have a nonprofit degree. Can you help me start a nonprofit? So along with jumping, different jobs, trying different things out, I ended up helping two of my friends start a nonprofit. One of them, the largest one I helped, was a small nonprofit called Healing Hoofbeats of Connecticut. And I helped them start their own business, which is equine therapy. So another unique kind of business, and me having my hand in it, it was more experience of helping people, learning about business, learning how to start up a business, which is not easy. And I think any of the panelists up here could say, I mean, if you ever started something new, it's definitely not easy. And you need help from the people you've encountered along the way. There were many phone calls I needed to make, many people I just needed to seek help from. And then soon after that, I ended up being the president of the board of that nonprofit, and then saying I need to go back to the healthcare setting. Hence where I am now, at Montefiore Mount Vernon Hospital, working for a company named Healogics. As you guys saw, many of you guys have some pens, and I think some mirrors from the hospital that a company handed out. And it's another eye-opening experience, because obviously I got this job during this pandemic, in a hospital. Anybody who works in a hospital, in a healthcare setting, or in face-to-face roles with people during this time has been very interesting. We've had to make changes. We had to roll with the punches. We have to learn new skills. And I heard it from, I believe it was, starting with Giovanni and Kai. I mean, you mentioned just, making those changes, learning how to learn, right? I think that's exactly what you guys said, and I really, really love that. Things are ever so changing in the healthcare setting, in the business sector, even for NYPD. I was just talking to Sean earlier. I mean, things are changing. You got to roll with it. But if you're passionate, I think it was something Dr. Corritore mentioned. If you love what you do, you will never work a day in your life. Currently, I am in that exact, what I was thinking was, what life was going to be like as a doctor, right? Going to medical school. I'm working in a hospital, side by side with doctors, nurses, finance people. I'm looking at all aspects of the business of a hospital, of a sector that has been continuously running, which is recession-proof, as I joked with Dave earlier. It's a good sector to be in. It's a good, job. I love it. And there's opportunities for growth. Healogics, the company that works through Montefiore Mount Vernon, is a national wound care specialty company. And they work and they pretty much consult for over 600 hospitals around the nation. And actually, I believe there's 2 offices internationally. So I guess my message would be to think out of the box, ask the questions, take advantage of the job and what perks they offer. Like I said, I had 2 of my degrees pretty much paid for by my jobs. The experience of leadership was important, the people you meet along the way, and just truly go into something you're passionate about. Like I said, when I was your age, I thought by this time I'd be a cardiologist. That's actually exactly what I wanted to be. But I'm still in a hospital, and I can promise you, I think every day everybody confuses me and just calls me doctor either way. So the title's not really important. I mean, seriously, I walk around the hospital like Dr. Guerra. It's like, I'm not the doctor, just the director. I mean, I do a lot too, but the title is nothing. It's the passion, it's the work you do, it's how good you feel at the end of the day, how many people you help. What else can I say other than, be open. Be open to all those opportunities, thrown at you. And I could say I learned a lot of those skills that I have today because of the Mount, because of what I went, just life in general. One thing I noticed was those values, absolutely, that are written up there. I've read in mission statements, vision statements I've helped write mission statements for companies. Like, those will absolutely follow you. The respect, integrity, perseverance, professional behavior, accountability. I mean, I say a lot of those words every day. You will be held accountable. You will learn how to respect people, and I can say, don't expect respect. Just give respect. And keep it a respectful environment. I look forward to your questions. There is a lot more. But what can I say? Because I like Dave. I mean, 9/11 was a tough time. I graduated summer. I had friends like you. I was sitting side by side with my friends, thinking, they were going to the military, going to school. Things changed. That summer, many of my friends thought they were just going to the military, which is great. That's what you want to do. But once again, things happen. And it's that old saying, right? When life throws you lemons, you make lemonade. You make the best of it. You do the best you can, and roll with it. I still keep in communication with, at least like daily. We have daily text messages and phone calls with 3 of those friends from Mount St. Michael. They know I'm here right now, actually, and they're actually LOLing me. They're like, "Oh, I can't believe you're there." Some of them won't. They think it's hysterical. So, but they still all work in New York. They're also in healthcare careers. Most of them. One of them went into military, does jobs in D.C. So, either way, hopefully you learned something from all of us today. And if you have any questions for me, I'll look forward to those later. But thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me back here at the Mount. If I run out of here right afterwards, I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm due at the Bronx Courthouse in about a half hour. My family ties here at the Mount run very deep. My dad graduated here in 1985. I graduated here in 2009. My younger brother, William, left here in 2017. And that family tie also extends to all of you, all the alumni here. We're all brothers here together at the Mount. Necessarily all of us here, your fellow classmates, you may not like each other, you hate sitting here with each other every day, but I guarantee you, when you graduate, that's all going to change. I don't think I've seen Giovanni since we were here collecting yearbooks after graduation, and right away when I saw him, the first thing I thought about was him walking around with a Sherpa with all the candies and the sodas and everything else here he was selling. Just quick about myself. Like many of you, I've been a Bronx guy my whole life. I went to St. Barnabas in Woodlawn, then here, and then I owned a college before getting on the job. A long time ago in 2008, I was here career day in this auditorium listening to Chief Pertel, who was a Mount graduate, Bronx Borough Commander. And things were very different in New York City back then. Crime, shootings, homicides, all that was at an all-time low, and it almost seemed like there wasn't a real need for such a police force. I'm sure everyone here, not reading so much physical newspapers, but sees the news every day, and that's quite the opposite. Violent crimes are on the rise, and we're losing a lot of cops every day to retirement. A lot of guys older than me who came on, they're all leaving. We need a lot of men, a lot of good men, a lot of mountain men. If you have any idea of service, want to help your community, the NYPD is a job for you. Real quick, a lot of people talk about the requirements, so I need to go criminal justice. When you go to college, don't waste your time with the criminal justice. All those credits mean nothing when you get into whatever police academy, if you choose NYPD or anything else. Choose a major, like I think it was Kai said before, your major's not your career. That's what you want to learn. When you graduate college, we're not going to give you a paycheck at the end. Everything you learn there is to help yourself, not so much, to apply for a job. I think a common theme here is all of us went to school for something else, ended up in a very vastly different career we ended up in than we thought when we started freshman year of college. Myself included, I was majoring in mass communication and political science. I thought I'd be a newspaper writer or on CNN or something like that. Yeah, real big change. Just 2 years of college, 60 credits, but you need to apply. To take the exam, you only have to be 18. 17 if you get your parents to sign a waiver. I took the test in March of 2008 when I was still 17. I was still a senior here at Mount. As soon as I turned 21, I got called. Same thing, Giovanni, we were coming of age, in the workforce during the recession. Short story, there was a newspaper that I owned, the Ionian, and I worked on the newspaper a little bit, and there was a guy ahead of me who graduated, and I thought this guy was going to be, winning Pulitzers and working for the New York Times, and I saw him giving out free samples at Costco, and excuse my language here, I know we're filming, but it scared the hell out of me. So I had been gotten called by the NYPD shortly after that. I got on 6 months out of the academy. I was running around Soundview chasing guys with guns. I'll see a lot of you guys. You live in the Throgs Neck, Pelham Bay area. If you ever see me around, feel free to say hello. And that's for any police officer. I know it's tough. Nowadays a lot going on. You feel very unapproachable, but, no different than any other kind of civil servant. We're here to work for you. It may not always seem like that, when we catch you speeding or trespassing in a park after dark or something like that, and we're, there to give you a hard time, but, we're there to give you a hard time to, for the grandmas living on that block, for the older people with kids who don't want people hanging out and, causing a mess like that. So it's not personal, it's just business. Just keep it moving, guys. I know I see a lot of you guys hanging out in Pelham Bay Park and, Locust Valley Park and all that. But I don't know if I'm going to be here to take questions, but I'm definitely going to be leaving my contact information at the alumni office. I'll also put up the application to register for the police exam, the application, as well as my department email, my department cell phone. Just real quick, for the requirements, 60 college credits. Like I said, any college, major you guys take, make it for something you want to learn, something you're passionate about, not necessarily something, it's going to turn into a career. I'm going to be honest, I signed up for the NYPD Career Day because I thought it'd be a pretty cool presentation. It was, and I never thought, 10 years later I'd be sitting here. After all the years in Catholic school, I thought I'd never be in a uniform, and here I am for another couple of years still wearing a Halloween costume. So thank you guys for having me. Sorry I couldn't speak too much longer. I'm going to leave my resource information, and enjoy, guys. Good luck with the school year. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, we have a few minutes for questions. So if you are at home and you have questions, feel free to put it in the live chat. Ms. Brewster will monitor that and read them to me. And before we take questions, I do want to just take a minute, because I'm sure we will run out of here at the end of the mod, to thank all of our speakers, Brother Brian, David, Giovanni, Kai, Oscar, Sean. Thank you for being here. Also want to thank the man taking pictures. Bill is also an alum. Mr. Coratori's an alum, and you can see that our alums want to give back to the Mount, and that's a wonderful thing. So thank you all for being here today, since I know the students will run out of here as soon as the mod ends, which is not a bad thing. They have other classes to get to. So what are your questions for our speakers today? I know that the AP US History class has questions, so don't be shy. Yes, speak loud, please. Any specific courses or anything to be qualified for the work you're doing? Anything? Anyone want to take that? Go for it.
So for me, it was more about life experience, getting into the position. That's a huge thing. I think people are realizing more now that life experience comes more into play than just your college degree. So I would say don't pigeonhole yourself to an actual course. Just kind of go with your gut. Think about what you really want to do in life and go for those courses. It will lead you somewhere down the path, and you will find yourself, and you will find the right one.
What else? Please. Great question. So a question about work-life balance and work-school balance.
That's a great question. It's definitely not easy, but what I would say is, so just to give you an example, like I was full-time work and did classes at night. I found a local school. I went to a small private college that offered master's degrees up where I lived in Upper Hartford, Connecticut, and Hartford County, Connecticut, and just finding the right balance. I mean, for me, it's just my wife and I. I have no kids yet. Yeah, it's truly time management, 100%. I mean, and that is, I'm certain, a skill that you guys are learning here. So definitely, and you guys have the opportunity of using the technology you have today, you know, to schedule yourself and time manage in many different ways. I mean, even today, I schedule stuff in my physical planner, my Google planner, my Outlook planner, and like, I think that's just at least one way that I did it. But because sometimes that is going to be the best way, is to try to go full-time school, full-time work. In my case, I had an accelerated business degree program. It was 1 year, and for Lego to pay for it, I had to do it in 1 year. Like I said, I was only there for 1 year. So it's making sure that time manage, and truly just dedicating yourself to that. But to your point, I mean, just thinking about that question, like, you know, making time for yourself. It's giving yourself those breaks and knowing your limit. I think is very good too. It's good to do to make sure that you pause. You know when to say, you know what, I need a break. Don't overwork yourself. Do something that you enjoy. In my case, I was taking breaks and literally building something with Lego, or going out with friends just for like a few hours and then going back to doing classes, because I had a in-class and virtual program that I went to. So those are interesting to look into also. You guys have a benefit due to COVID. A lot of courses are being offered virtual.
I do have 2 questions here.
We have 2 questions at home. I'll make sure I take them, and I know the bell's going to ring. The important thing that I will share with all of you as Ms. Brewster reads those questions, and she did tell me it's okay if we go over a minute or 2, so don't get up the second the bell rings. We will dismiss you. Your questions at home.
One question is, what is the work environment like at Lego?
Work environment like at Lego. I guess that's popular.
I have to admit, it was one of the best ones I ever worked for. They're based out of Enfield, Connecticut, and they look for people with, I believe, minimum bachelor's degrees, and it's free candy, free M&Ms, free Starbucks. It was a good job to work for, and a good deal to get your degree paid for.
Nice.
The other one is, what are the main courses that you focused on as a software engineer?
Software.
Yes, like I was mentioning earlier, there aren't as much hard requirements to be a software engineer. Actually, if you're majoring in computer science, what you're learning is not the practical application. You're mainly learning the theory. There are certain classes that are practical, but in general, when you're learning software engineering, the foundations that you want to learn are data structures. So that's how do you go about modeling data. Algorithms. So algorithms are almost like recipes of how to solve specific solutions and problems. And then there are different categories of software engineering. So there is front-end development, which is working on visual aspect of things, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. There's also back-end engineering, which is about databases and also cloud computing. And there's machine learning and a lot of other areas. It isn't as heavy math requirement. The only one that's more math requirement are machine learning is very math and statistics heavy. But front-end engineering is like if you have a good eye for design, that also benefits. So once you have the fundamentals down, you have a lot of flexibility in terms of what you learn.
We've got one more, and that is, I think, for anybody. Stephen Cremona would like to that. There's something in the workforce that you need that isn't taught in high school? There's something in the workforce
that is needed that you're not taught in high school.
Something about life that's necessary in the workforce that you're not taught in high school.
I would say the easiest answer to that is show up. You just show up. But you'd be surprised how many people have said, when I went for job applications and interviews, my former boss was like, what makes you think you can go for that job? And I said, why can't I? I can do something better than somebody else can. And I showed up for that interview. I went with that attitude, and believe it or not, the person interviewing you feels that attitude from you. They pick it up and say, that's the person I want here, because I know they'll overcome anything that I throw at them. So I would say show up with the attitude that you can do it.
Yeah, so again, I'd like to thank our panelists, thank all of you for your attention, and end with what I started with, is this is really just the beginning. All of our panelists said that they're available if you have questions. You know, your teachers know how to reach out to us. Your guidance counselors know how to reach out to us. This is the beginning of the conversation. Keep the conversation going. And again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you all of you. And just to thank our panelists before you're dismissed, Ms. Brewster will present.